And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it. And that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to another new episode of Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon Wright. Tonight's episode, we're going to be joined by my guest, Harold. Harold reached out and said he had several experiences throughout his life that he wanted to come on here and talk about. But before we bring Harold on, we got some front-end business to take care of. First and foremost, if you've ever had an experience or if you've done some research and you've got a story you'd like to share, please reach out to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com. We will get you scheduled on a future episode. I'm always looking for guests, always looking for people that want their experiences shared. So just send an email. We'll get that taken care of. If you're a fan of the show, you want to help the show out, please leave a 5-star review. That is the best way to help get exposure to the show. It helps the ranking system, so it makes it more visible for people to find and discover. When people discover the show, that could lead to potential new guests coming onto the show. You can also share the show around. The word of mouth is what helps the podcast keep growing. I'm grateful for all the ones that have been sharing it. Glad you guys enjoy it. It's been a pleasure to make this show, and I'm happy that everyone seems to enjoy what I've got going on here. If you want to help the show financially, there is a donate button. You can also join the Patreon. It's only $1.99 a month, but it gives you access to ad-free content, also early access to all the episodes. Right after I record them and get them put together, they'll be up on the Patreon, so they could be up there several weeks before they're released to the public. There'll also be some exclusive episodes eventually put on there as well, but as of right now, that's all we've got really going on. Make sure to follow us on social medias, Facebook, Instagram, X. I don't really use X, but I have one because apparently you have to. I do have a website out now, tinfoiltales.com. All the episodes are available on there to stream, as well as the videos from the YouTube channel. There'll be some extra content too, so make sure to check that out if you're interested. Again, I want to say thanks to all the listeners out there. I truly appreciate you guys. Without you, there would be no show. So thanks again. But on that note, we're going to bring Harold on, dive into his discussions. I hope you guys enjoy it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest tonight, Harold. Thanks for coming out here and talking with me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yep, my pleasure. A little bit about yourself.
Well, my name's Harold Milam, and I've lived in Lawton, Oklahoma for since 2001. I'm 51 years old, and I've been interested in the world of cryptids and paranormal since I was about the age of 6. And I've just recently, or since last December, started actively researching and going out in the field and searching for cryptids. I'm not really searching for the paranormal as of right now, but I've had plenty of experiences.
I think cryptids and paranormal kind of run parallel with each other.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, I've come to find out that there is a little bit of it in the cryptid world. Yeah.
It seems if there's some sort of paranormal activity, there's usually some sort of cryptid sightings around the areas as well. So I think, like I said, they kind of run parallel with each other. Where there's cryptids, there's something paranormal, or cryptids are paranormal. Who knows?
Oh yeah, in my experience, I've seen or heard things like, like I've seen glimpses of a Bigfoot or a dog man. Can't really tell the difference, but it's a big bipedal hairy creature. Um, and then hearing it, knowing that there's something there, and having the sounds, the growls, the howls, and all that, but you can't see it. So, if you know it's there but you can't see it, it's got to be connected to the paranormal somehow.
Mm-hmm. There's something supernatural one way or the other. I don't know
Oh yeah,
how else to describe it other than that. So,
yeah, and that's um, that's my aim at what I'm doing is trying to figure it out.
what got you into interested in this? Like, what made you want to start looking into these things? I know you said you've been interested since you were at a young age. Like, was there a certain type of experience or something you had that just kind of drew you into it?
Oh yeah, about the time I was around 6 years old, maybe five going into six. Um, I lived in my grandparents' attic with my parents and my uh, two brothers and two sisters. Um, well, I would. It all started when I was go to bed at night, and I would lay there with this funny feeling in my stomach that there was something going on, and I started uh, having my legs lifted up off the end of the bed and then slammed down, and that was continuous. It happened two or three times every night for as long as I can remember. Um, and then I started seeing these apparitions of, I didn't know what they were at the time, but now studying about all this, there was these uh, what looked to be like demons, cloaked demons with uh, red glowing eyes. Some of them had orange glowing, some of them had yellow, um, and they floated. They floated around. And the first time I saw one of them, I was walking up the stairs into my grandparents' attic. I was going up there by myself, and I saw them floating around the center light of the attic. And I'm freaking out, but I got to go up there because I was going up there to look for something. So I don't know, something told me I got to go up there, and I went up there and I said, uh, you guys got to leave. And they disappeared. Well, um, not, like I said, night after night after night, it was my Achilles being slammed down on the end of the bed because I was just a little bit taller than my bed was long. Um, well, I had this one reoccurring dream that I could remember of me out in the middle of a lake fishing with a stranger. I did not recognize who the person was. It was an old man wearing fishing hat and shirt, and he's sitting there fishing, and then all of a sudden I would hear a gunshot, and I'm looking at this at third person. Now I hear a gunshot, and then everything would go yellow. Okay, I'd wake up from that, and then I'd see the apparition standing over my bed. Well, another dream that I had, and I had never ever once in my life at that point heard anything about aliens. 'cause my parents were pretty strict, and they kind of watched what we listened to and watched on TV. But I woke up. I was in a dream state, but I woke up and sat in my bed, and everything was blurry. And I get up and I go down the stairs of the attic, and I walk by my grandparents who were sleeping in their beds. Back in the day, when they used to sleep separate. But they were both asleep. I walk into the living room. I walk over to the north end window, and I get up on my grandpa's deacon's bench, and I'm looking at the window, and I see a long line on each side of the window of these little greenish gray aliens. At the time, I didn't know they were aliens. I couldn't tell the difference between something evil and something good. But these things were outside the window, and then all of a sudden the window opens up, and they grab me by my shoulders and pull me out.
What did they look like?
Like your classic little grays, except they were greenish gray. Yeah, with the big heads, the small bodies, big heads, big
The
hands,
black eyes.
fingers, black eyes. Yeah, looked exactly like that. And I looked down the back end, because I saw some flashing lights, different colored flashing lights. So they're surrounding me, and I turn towards the backyard, and there's this saucer-shaped UFO in the backyard, and you've got the little grays, greenish grays all around, and there's hundreds of them, right? There's hundreds of them there, and they open up a path for me to walk, and then all of a sudden, out from the bottom of that saucer walks this big, tall, greenish gray alien. I mean, he's got long legs, long arms, and the little head.
He's considerably bigger than the other ones.
Yeah, with the long neck. You know how they have those, I forget what they call them. I've heard stories about how those things are pretty much in control of the smaller grays.
They're like the leader, and the gray ones are like the drones.
Yeah. Well, they walk down the ramp, and they're standing there. There's like 3 or 4 of them, and they're standing there, and they're like welcoming me to walk up the ramp. And then I wake up. But I wake up, I'm winded, I'm sweating, and I look down at my arm near my shoulder, and I've got 3 red marks. They were in the shape of fingers. So I only had that dream that one time. All my other dreams that I had were reoccurring up until I guess my grandparents knew something was going on, because they could hear me through the rafters in the floor, because I guess I was talking in my sleep. So my grandpa approached me one day and asked me if I wanted to go to the witness meetings with him and my grandma, because they went every Wednesday and every Saturday, because my grandpa was the head elder in his congregation. So he asked me to go. Well, yeah, I went to the meetings, and that first meeting, I had kind of an awakening, so to speak. I got in touch with my I guess you could say I got in touch with God, or I found my spiritual side. Well, all that stopped, the dreams, I didn't have any more reoccurring dreams. But then I started seeing things that I couldn't believe. I already knew I could see these cloaked things, these what I call demons. But they wouldn't come around the house anymore, but they hung around my grandpa's garage, and they would I could see them circling the light on the inside of the garage, doing what they would do in the attic, hearing, and I could hear them. I could hear them doing chants, and so I'm 6 years old, going 5, 6, 7 was a really bad time for me. When I'm being introduced to all that stuff, it's kind of traumatic. But I learned that I'm always gonna see these things. I had to learn how to deal with it. Most of the time, it's just seeing glimpses of them, or I'll hear things, and I see things move that aren't supposed to move without somebody picking them up. And then what freaked me out when I moved up here to Lawton, I didn't have any of these kinds of experiences till I moved to Lawton. I started having these things walk into my house when I'm up late night watching TV, and I have this person with no legs floating in the air, kind of misty around them, and they stop in the entrance to the living room, and I'm like, hello? Because it's looking right at me, and it's trying to talk, but there's nothing coming out, So I'm like, okay, let me relax. And I'm asking this thing, what do you want? I can help you if I can, but I need to know what you want. And this thing turns and points towards the the side door to the house, which goes to the garage. I'm like, okay, because I heard that there was an old man that died in the house. And that he worked in the garage all the time. Okay, so I'm like, well, yeah, I know there's an old man died in this house, and well, this thing turns and walks out through the door without opening it, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what next? And then this was repetitive. This next thing that happened, I'm sitting there and waiting for something to happen, and all of a sudden the old man walks into the kitchen and starts making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I'm like,
so it came into what you were seeing actually ended up going in there and making a sandwich?
The old man did, but not the other thing. The other thing ended up clarifying what it or who it was, because the next time I saw it, it was more clear, and it was a woman in the old nurse's uniform. I guess it was his caretaker.
Do you think it's like a residual thing?
Yeah, because the same thing happened every night. It was the same thing happened every night. The old man would come in there and make his peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
It was like stuck in a time loop, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. But, it would open my refrigerator, open the cupboard, open the silverware drawer, things like that. So I'm like, okay, well, it all progresses over the years, and I find that I'm more receptive to things in the paranormal. Well, I had no clue about Bigfoot or whatever because I never heard about that kind of stuff growing up. Even though we went out in the woods, lived in California for a year out in the woods, I never saw nothing, never heard nothing. That was when I was about 11 years old. But I'm 11 years old. I'm not really going out looking for that stuff. But finding things out there in the woods that shouldn't be out there was another thing. Like we had this axe murderer that was on the loose. They called him the axe murderer right there in California. Well, come to find out, we're right smack dab in the middle of all that. So I'm hearing voices. I'm hearing things like, help me. But it was a normal thing for me to hear this stuff over and over and over every day growing up. Well, as I got older, I kind of lost that sense. I wasn't hearing things. I wasn't seeing things. But we had moved. Let me backtrack a little bit. We had moved from Iowa, where I was from, and we moved to Texas. Well, I'm seeing and hearing this paranormal stuff and then all of a sudden we start seeing UFOs, daytime, nighttime, you name it. We saw UFOs flying over the city of Corpus Christi. My dad and my little brother were the first ones to see a cigar-shaped UFO, and it was so clear that they could even see the little grays inside the UFO, through the windows of it. All that. So I didn't get a chance to see that because I was inside and having to do something. And then all of a sudden, my little brother comes running in. Come out here, you got to see this, you got to see this. Well, I run out and then they told me about it and they said it was right there, but it's gone. Well, I go walking in the backyard and I'm looking up in the sky and it's pretty cloudy. And all of a sudden, this red glowing sphere swoops down over us, and it's making a crackling electrical sound like a transformer as it's flying over us. Well, I had never seen a red glowing sphere flying through the air before. I've seen red spheres hanging on electrical lines and all that, but never one that's burning like the sun and flying directly over me, like directly over the tree line, probably 16 feet in the air. Because our trees down there weren't very tall.
Is there anything else from that led into anything, or is
that? Yeah. I would go on walks with my little brother to the bayfront, which was about a 3-mile walk. And one night we were cutting across the park that we always cut across, and there was this house that had a scientist lived there, because we knew the guy. We'd seen him in the daytime before and talked to him, and he was a lab scientist. and his family. He had a wife and a couple of kids. Well, he was talking about going on vacation. Well, that night we go there and we're thinking, um, why is there lights? Why are there flashlights going all through the house? I mean, there's like a dozen flashlights all through the house, right? So we're like, aren't they supposed to be on vacation? And so we're like, let's go on our walk. Well, on the way back, we're walking through that park and there's no lights in that house anymore. But we get past the park and my little brother stops me and he says, "You'll never guess what I saw." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I saw a little gray alien hiding behind the bush in the driveway of that house." He was crouched behind there. I'm like, okay, that's it. Let's go back. And he's grabbing me like, no, no, no. Because he knew me that I'm not afraid of that stuff. So I'm going to go for it. But I stopped and then we went and got my mom. We walked back and of course she was curious. So she walked up around there and we go up to that driveway, and sure enough, behind the bush that he said he saw the little alien crouching, there was 2 little wet footprints. Like, I couldn't tell if it was wet because it was water or if it was like greasy, but they were like wet footprints that were drying.
There was just 2 of them.
Yeah, there was just two of them. And I'm like, why is there only 2? If they're wet here, why isn't there any other? And we couldn't figure that out.
I've kind of wondered that myself when, not to interrupt, but like when you see people with tracks and like even with Sasquatch or whatever, when they're trying to make these tracks, there's only like a couple, usually just one track. There might be a second track. I was like, well, how's there only one? If this thing is walking, clearly there should be more than just one. But it's weird to me only see like 1 or 2 tracks.
Yeah, because I've found a few tracks, but I'm not good enough to make a cast out of. But there's always like one fist print. There's no other handprint, and there's no footprint around it, or there'd be one footprint and nothing else. I've had that in a few of my videos.
Yeah, that's one of those things I've always wondered, and I'm kind of skeptical for the most part, and oftentimes when I see something like that, or there's only one, or there's only 2, I was like, you're showing a whole thing of snow, and you only see 2 tracks and a whole thing of snow. It looks kind of fake to me, just because like someone clearly put down something, made 2 tracks, and like, oh, this is only 2 spots. Well, if someone was walking, there'd be more than just 2 spots. But
yeah, my dad told me a story about before I was born that he went and made a couple of wooden Bigfoot shoes to wear, and he played a trick on the neighbor. So yeah,
it's funny to do to your neighbors or whatever, but when it gets out there and everyone else starts talking about it, then it kind of ruins any sort of credibility there is for people that are actually interested in these things to see if there are something out there.
Yeah. See, my parents didn't ever mention anything like that up until I got into my teens. And then my mom told me about how she saw the same things in the attic when she first married my dad. So the very same things that I saw. And then we come and we move here to southern Oklahoma, and this after my dad had passed, I started seeing other things. But before my dad passed, we moved up here, and we were basically homeless. We were living in the wildlife refuge outside of town, and we lived in a tent out there for about 4 months. So, night after night, you get to hear and see a lot of things. Had an experience with a mountain lion in the tree wanting to eat our dog. So, having a herd of buffalo run through the center of camp, you get to know the buffalo and they hang around, but they don't try to hurt you. You got bobcats, you got, you name it, it's coming around. So you get to know the noises that these animals make, and the tracks that they leave. Well, not once when I was out there did I ever see a Bigfoot track. Of course, I wasn't really looking, but I would look for mountain lion tracks or buffalo tracks, elk tracks, bobcats. Luckily, there's no bear out in these woods in southwest Oklahoma. We haven't had bears. We haven't had bears since 1994. They took them out of the refuge. We had brown bear back then, but you never know. There could be one or two that never got caught. But I never did hear anything like a bear. I would always hear things like the buffalo snorts, the mountain lions with their motor running, that gurgle sound as they're walking.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, their roars, and you got the bobcats with their little, just things like that. But towards the end, like in the last month we were there, I didn't know about Bigfoot so much, but I heard some stories about it. Well, see, my mom likes to collect rocks, so she was picking up rocks and putting them in the back of her van. Well, I started hearing things when I would go up to take a shower. I started hearing my name being called through the wind whipping through the building, because we had skylights that were open, and I kept hearing things like Bud or Harold, and I'm like, what do you want, type of thing, and I'm not getting a response. And then I figured it out, and I'm like, after a couple of weeks, I figured it out, because we started having things happen around the van, like something trying to get in the van and there's never anything there. The van door opening and slamming shut, even though I just locked it. But I was up at the showers by myself one night and heard my name being called through the wind, and then all of a sudden it said, "Put them back." Like, okay, got you. I know what you're saying. So I told my mom to put everything back. And so that next morning she did. And we have this old buffalo that hung around the camp area. He was, discarded from the rest of the herd because he was getting old. Um, and he kind of followed us around a little bit, even though sometimes it wasn't possible for that buffalo to appear where we were, because a car drives a little faster than a buffalo can walk through the woods for 3 miles when you got roads cutting through. So we're like, is that the same buffalo or is it different? And we're like, no, we look at the markings, we look at the tag, it's the same buffalo, and it's appearing everywhere we go. Well, this buffalo was laying out by our campsite, and my mom goes and puts all the rocks in a pile, and she says, okay, I put them back. Well, that buffalo looks right at my mom and shakes his head, acknowledges that. Okay, so after that happens, we go to leave the day we found a place, and we go to move in. We're leaving the refuge, and that buffalo pops out in the middle of the road and trots in front of us as we're leaving the refuge. And he's looking back at us, and he's just trotting, and he leads us all the way to the gate. And as soon as he gets to the gate, he goes off to the side, stands there, and watches us leave.
And you're escorted out of there.
Yeah, we got escorted by a buffalo. Well, what we thought was a buffalo, I'd say. But then it leads to my first encounter with the Bigfoot. But before I get into that, before all that happened, I had an experience one night with an old medicine man. This old medicine man, I met him out at the refuge. Before we left the refuge, we went to the general store in Cache, Oklahoma, and everybody walked ahead of me into the store, and I'm going to enter the door of the store, and this old Indian man grabs my arm and stops me, and he says, "Thank you." And I'm like, "Thank you for what?" He says, "For putting it back." I'm like, okay. So I'm like, and who are you? What's your name? And he tells me who he is, and he says, "I've been watching." I'm like, okay, freaked me out. So I'm gonna go on my way. Couple of years later, I'm hanging out in the bar with my girlfriend at the time, and I'm having a good time with my friends. I had a little bit to drink. I see that Indian man walk behind me and go into the restroom of the bar. So I'm a little curious, what's he doing there? So I get up and I go in the restroom, and there's nobody there. So, I hate to say it, I go to relieve myself, and I get done, and I'm washing my hands, and all of a sudden I look in the mirror, and he's standing behind me, and I'm like, well, like, dude, what do you want? And he's like, "I'm here to protect you." I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, why do I need protection? And he told me what was going to happen. So I go back out. And sit by my friend in the bar. And I'm expecting the old man to come walking out behind me, and he doesn't while I'm sitting there. And all of a sudden I feel this overwhelming just surge of energy going to me, and I kind of collapse on the bar, and my friend's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I don't know what happened." And I told him about the old man in the bathroom. So he gets up, goes in the bathroom. There's nobody there. Well, me and my girlfriend go to leave, and we're driving down the road to go home, or I'm sorry, not to go home, to go to breakfast at a popular pancake house. We pull up there, and I get that feeling again. And before we get out of the car, I see the front door of that restaurant open and close by itself, and then I see the inner door open and close by itself. But I don't say nothing. I'm not letting her know really what's going on. We go in there and we sit down and we order our food, and then I have to go to the restroom, so I go around the corner into the restroom, and guess who's standing in the bathroom? The old man. Well, he tells me what's going to happen. I go back out and I sit down, and I tell my girlfriend, I said, "Something's going to happen tonight when we leave." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Don't worry about it. I know what's going to happen. So when it happens, just do what I say." So we get done and we go to get up to leave, and the inner door opens by itself, and then the outer door opens by itself. But we're like getting them and going. We get in the car, we drive about a mile down the road, and all of a sudden this car comes up behind us. My girlfriend pulls over, gets out, and walks back towards that car, and the woman jumps out with a knife and puts it to her throat, says, "I'm going to kill you." She leads my girlfriend back up to the driver's side door, and I'm going to get out of the car. And then she leans over and looks in the car, and she looks in the back seat, and she says, "Tell the old man to get out of the car." Okay. There is no old man in the car. It was just the two of us. But she sees an old man. And then she drops the knife, backs up, and says, "We're good. We're good." And she gets in her car and leaves.
Same old man you kept seeing in the bathroom.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, I've had some weird experiences. Now, after that, nothing really happened for a few years up until 2012. 2012, I was, my dad had passed away in 2008, so we moved away for a year and came back in 2009, then stayed at my sister's for a year, then moved in with my brother. 6 blocks away from downtown Lawton, Oklahoma. Now, he lives in an alleyway, or lived in an alleyway at the time, a 2-story house. Now, a lot of people are going to think, this is kind of weird, but Halloween night, 2012, full moon, everything's lit up like early morning. It was that bright. I'm standing in the backyard of my brother's house looking up at the moon. And I had just came down from my bedroom upstairs. I was going to bring my phone out and take pictures, but my phone was at 1%, so I put it on the charger upstairs in my room. Came downstairs, went out back, started looking at the moon, and it's about 11:30 at night. About 11:30 at night, and I'm looking up at the moon, and out the corner of my eye, I kind of see something, but it doesn't alert me so much because I know there's little critters that run around all the time, raccoons and squirrels and whatever, I'm thinking it's light enough they might be confused, but then all of a sudden I smell this god awful smell the skunk and wet dog like smell, and I'm just drawn back by it, and I'm shaking my head, trying to shake the smell away or whatever. That lasted for about 10 seconds. And then 10 seconds after the smell went away, I was looking back up the moon, and then all of a sudden, out the corner of my eye, I see something again. And this time I turn and I look, and standing right next to me, and I'm leaning on the fence, this chain link fence. I got one arm on the chain link fence, and then I'm looking up and over, and I see this 7-foot tall. That's about what I approximated, because I'm 5'8". This thing was standing next to a 4-foot fence, not but maybe a foot and a half away from the fence. 7 feet tall. He's all white, but with mud and gunk all over him, messy hair. And then another figure comes out of the dark, stands right next to him, and it's a brown creature, probably about 2 feet taller than him. I know it's a him because I can see everything, but this is a female, and it's brown, like a copper brown color with dark skin. And it's standing there, and I can see the features and everything, and it's in the moonlight, and I'm seeing a face. The brown one, I'm seeing the face of a ape-like creature, about 9 feet in the air, and I'm leaning over, so I'm having to really crick my neck, and I'm looking up, and this thing is looking down at me, and it's got blue eyes. It's got blue eyes, not green, not brown. So I thought, because that's what I saw. But then I look over at the other creature that's standing right next to me now, and he's breathing heavily. His chest is heaving, and he's clenching his fists, and I turn my neck really hard, and I'm looking up, and this thing looks like it's half dog. It's got pointed ears that go way up. It's got half a snout, like comes out probably about 4 inches from its face. It's got gnarly, sharp teeth and a tongue hanging out the side, and it's slobbering all over the place. And then this female, which I now know that was a Bigfoot, because I got to look at him from head to toe over and over and over. I'm standing right next to him, and it's really light outside. Well, she looks at me, turns her head to the side, kind of tilts it, looks down at me, and I kind of get up from the fence to get a better look at her. And she goes, whoop, 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 whoop. And I'm like, oh, hi. That's all I could get out of my mouth was, oh, hi. And she's just staring at me, and she's not moving her arms. She's just letting them dangle, and she's looking at me, but he's standing there, and he's just, breathing heavy, and every second that goes by, he's breathing heavier and heavier. And I look at him, and I look at her. She looks at him, looks at me, and I back up a step. And as soon as I backed up a step, she goes and raises her right arm and shoves this other creature in the back. Shoves him in the back. makes him move forward a little bit. He kind of grunts a little, and but gains his balance and continues to walk. And she looks at me, doesn't say anything, doesn't make a noise, but turns her head and starts walking, and she catches up with him. They get to the alleyway, which is about 30 yards from where I'm standing. They turn, the male turns to look towards me. She walks out behind him in the alley, turns towards me. This male continues to stare, but then all of a sudden he flares up and he does a flex. He's flexing his muscles in his arms and making fists, and his chest is flaring out, and he goes, and I'm like looking at her. She goes and shoves him in the back, this time twice as hard, and he goes stumbling, but regains his balance, and she catches up with him. And as they're walking away into the darkness of the alley, they're both looking back at me, but not turning their heads because they don't have much of a neck, but they're turning their upper torso and keeping an eye on me as they walk away. And I'm like, standing there, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. So I just blurt out, F this, I'm going to get my bat. I go inside and I tell my brother about it. And he's like, no way. I said, yeah. So I grab my bat and I go out in the alleyway. Nothing. All gone. Completely gone. Never saw him again.
I don't know if a bat would have been
No,
much
it
help.
It wouldn't have been much help, but I'm having the delayed reaction because I can't believe what I'm seeing. Here it is, Halloween night, and I'm seeing a 9-foot and a 7-foot creature, and I'm looking at them. I got full detail of them, and I'm thinking, oh, I wish I had my phone. But then I'm thinking, if I had my phone and pulled it out, then that thing that was standing next to me might have not liked it.
What do you think that the connection is between the two things? Like, I've heard tales before from other people that if there's a dog man, there's usually a Sasquatch around, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories that they get along, they work together in hunting, or then there's other they fight for territory. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was kind of on the fence with that, but my most recent investigation I did back out in the refuge, me and my girlfriend, who's a member of my O.C.S.T team, but we were out there, and I got footage of this. Now, can't see a face, I can't see anything but the outline of it and the grayish color of it, and it's probably about a good 8 feet tall. And my girlfriend tells me to pan the camera over there because she feels something's over there. I pan it there, and something turns and walks away as soon as I pan the camera there. Well, we go a little bit further, and I didn't see at the time, but I'm taking pictures, all kinds of pictures. You got to take pictures when you go out. If you don't take pictures, you're not going to catch hardly anything, because you're not going to see, most people aren't going to see anything in person. It's all going to show up when you look through your pictures later on, because I went through the pictures, and there is a picture of this creature on all fours, sticking its head up over a log, and he's got pointed ears like a dog and a snout like a dog. But there are no dogs out there like German Shepherds and things like that. There's coyote. This wasn't a coyote. This was a black dog that looked wolf-like. And there's no wolves in southern Oklahoma. in southwest Oklahoma. There are no wolves.
About how tall was it, you said?
Well, he was crouched down. This thing that I later saw in pictures was crouched down, and I could not see his appendages, but kind of wide shoulders for a dog. But this thing that I got on camera, on video, looked to me to be about 8 feet tall, and he was about 40 yards away behind some brush. But there was a clearing in that brush, and I happened to catch the side of his head, and then he noticed that I had the camera on him, so he turns and walks away.
I've always tried to wonder, when it comes to things like this, if they're a flesh and blood creature, how come we've still yet to find any sort of real like bodies or anything like that when it comes to how they are? That's why I said before, I think there's more supernatural element to it or something, because it doesn't all add up.
I believe that there's something more supernatural, something that can't be explained, because there's a lot of things supernatural that have never been explained. They're still a wonder to this day. Plus, you've got let's say hypothetically, we've got a descendant of an angel or demon. Okay, so you're talking supernatural there. You're talking, it's got some abilities that people don't. Or you've got maybe some kind of alien being that's able to come and go as it pleases, because there's a lot of talk about the portals and all that. Now, I have gotten a picture of what could be a portal forming in front of me, because it was kind of a blue light that appeared in my picture, but not in front of me in person, but on my pictures. That could either be a glitch in my picture or an anomaly that I couldn't see with my naked eye. But I've never seen something open up and something walk in and out,
I've leaned more towards that theory myself, just because there is the plausibility. I know mathematically there are other dimensions that we can prove besides the three that we see.
Scientists have already they're already saying that that there more than likely is other dimensions.
I think there's up to 10, if I'm not mistaken, that they claim theoretically through mathematics.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking is these things could be, and this could go for all sorts of weird things, paranormal, all the way through these interdimensional beings to what we call aliens. What if everything that we're seeing and people are experiencing are actually just from a higher dimension that we're not capable of understanding yet, and somehow they bleed into ours? Because when you have paranormal experiences like your residual hauntings, maybe they're based from another dimension, and even with time to an extent, what if everything, I guess, I don't know the correct term for this, but if everything plays out through time, it's like repeat. Things happen in different realities, I guess, like the multiverse. Every choice you make happens and plays out differently. And what if everything that's going on that we think is paranormal is literally just from these alternate realities bleeding into our world? Because there's so much things that we can't see with our naked eye anyways. Who's to say that these things don't have the ability to enter our world and then leave our world?
Well, I just have to say that anything's possible. anything's possible because something had to be created by something, everything had to be created by something.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know the whole truth, and we'll never know the whole truth. But as far as, you got your aliens and your Bigfoot, and your Dogman, and then you've got different variations of them. Anything's possible, and I believe that they don't show themselves to everyone for a reason, because they don't want the world to really know. They don't want everyone to know, because if everyone knew, then they couldn't do the things that they do. It's kind of like the government. They don't tell us everything they do. So,
Now I can agree to that one.
Yeah.
But I've also said I don't think we all need to know exactly. Everyone's like, "Oh, we pay taxes, we should know." I was like, "Well,
No,
I understand the whole matter of security of why we shouldn't know everything."
we don't need to know every little bit that goes on behind closed doors. We don't need to know every little bit that goes on out in the forest.
That's the human curiosity getting the best of us, that we think we need to know. But at the end of the day, I don't think we all need to know every little thing that goes on.
Yeah. There was one thing I left out about when I lived in Corpus about the Men in Black. Back when we saw these UFOs, UAPs, and the supposed little alien and all that. Yeah, me and my brother, we started working. It was around the age where we started working, about 18. We started being followed by men in suits driving white vans and black vans. We thought it was kind of funny that there'd be somebody sitting at a bank at 6 o'clock in the morning, a group, four men in black suits and sunglasses at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black dark, and they follow us to our work, slowly behind us, and then try to pull up on us and open the van door and try to grab us, but we ran from them, and things like that. And then the last time we got followed by these men in black, we were walking to the mall in broad daylight, and this black van pulls up behind us, speeds up when they see us, and we get to this mini mall that's on the way to the big mall, and we start running, and luckily on the other side of that mini mall there was this convention of I don't know, there was a bunch of elderly people holding some kind of senior convention, whatever, out in the parking lot with balloons and everything. And we run in the middle of that group, and those men in black come around the corner of that little mini mall, and they stop. And there's 4 of them, and they stop dead in their tracks. And me and my brother walk up in the middle of that group, and this old man grabs me by the shoulder and he says, "Are they chasing you?" I was like, "Yep." They chased us for about 2 blocks. And he's like, "Stay put." So he goes and grabs up a couple of his buddies that are there, and they walk towards those men. The men turn around, walk back to their van, get in, and they speed off. Now, I don't know about you, but this was before the Men in Black movies. This was before there was a whole lot of talk about men wearing suits and sunglasses and nabbing you. You know, that's before it was widespread out in public, really. You know, not a whole lot of people knew about that because, you know, I tell them about it and they're like, back then I told them about it. They're like, what do you mean, Men in Black? So, like, yeah.
It wasn't as widely known as it is today. Even when you bring up Men in Black now, everyone thinks of the movies.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, it was a bunch of blonde-haired men with black sunglasses and black suits with white shirt and black ties and black dress shoes.
I know there's a theory out that they're not even actually human either. They're either androids or some sort of alien technology that are impersonating humans.
Oh, yeah, anything's possible. I know that these guys weren't huffing and puffing. They just stopped and stood there.
The new term that gets tossed around is non-human intelligence, so maybe that's what they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just anything and everything is possible. We never can discount anything until you can prove it wrong.
But I've always been somewhat a skeptic, and anymore, so I've been doing this show and having my own experiences and stuff like that, I've become more open to the possibility of anything just because I don't know everything. I don't think anyone knows anything when it comes to things. People claim they're experts. They know all this and they know all that about certain topics, especially like cryptids or paranormal or stuff like that. I was like, how do you claim to be an expert when there's no scientific proof of any of this stuff, but you're going to say you're an expert? So I always try and just kind of roll my eyes at people like that, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just a curious person that would like to find answers.
Yep, that's what I say too. I'm here to give people a platform to talk about their experiences because for 15 years I never talked about mine, and I didn't want other people to kind of go through what I've went through. So it's just nice to hear other people talk, so it makes me feel like I'm not so crazy.
Oh, yeah. I welcome anybody and everyone to share their experiences because you can't have it settled. You can't clear your mind unless you talk to somebody about it. It's just the same way with people that suffer from PTSD. You got to talk about it. You got to talk about it. You got any kind of issues, you got to talk about it. If you talk about it, somebody might know something. Then they can pass it on to the next person, and that person might know more. You know, it's just sharing information can get you somewhere.
I've always said that when people share their experiences, it might just take that one person listening to be able to relate to it and feel better and accept it for themselves. So it ends up helping someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's in my area where I live, there's a lot of skeptics. There's a lot of people that know something, but they don't want to come forward. You know, because they're afraid that their neighbor's going to think they're crazy. Or, you know, the government might come down on me. You know, if enough people aired their opinions, aired their actual experiences, then somebody might come out and show something that's provable. Somebody might have evidence that's provable. And you don't even have to give your name. You just do it anonymously, and somebody can jump in there and figure it out and get that information out to the public, get that information out to these so-called experts, get everybody to talking about it, everybody to look into it. And I don't do this to capture a Bigfoot. I don't want to ever capture a Bigfoot except on camera. I don't want to capture anything except on camera. I'm not in this for publicity. I'm in this because I'm curious about what's out there. I want to be able to live side by side with whatever's out there without the fear of not knowing what it could do. You know, I want to be able to share the woods with every living creature. I want to be able to walk the earth with every living creature. That's why I do what I do.
Was there anything else after your encounter in 2012, or was that kind of the last one you've had,
Well,
like up close like that?
That was the last one I had up close like that. Well, I didn't see anything. The first time I went out and did a video out in the refuge, I took pictures and I got what looks like a dogman on camera. I used a zoom lens and I zoomed way into these trees, way about probably 200 yards, and I got a really good picture. It looks like actually looks like a black wolf, but he's big. That same hunt, I call it hunt, but it's just an investigation. I went into this one area that's frequented by a lot of people. It's by this creek, and I'm going down into the creek, and this is in January of last year. I'm going down by this creek, and I hear something, but I don't see nothing. I hear like footsteps in the water. So I'm like, okay, it's time to turn around because this grass is really tall. It's taller than me, and I'm not going to have something jump out and drag me away, you know? So I turn around and I'm walking back towards the vehicle, and all of a sudden I hear footsteps behind me, but I don't see nothing. Well, I also hear a little, and I'm like, okay, time to double time. And I'm speeding up, heading away, and I'm filming on video, and I don't alert people on the video to what's behind me because I'm not wanting to stop, but I feel something coming up on me, and I hear the footsteps, and I'm looking down at the ground. I don't see any footsteps. I don't see any prints in the mud. Don't see, but I can just hear it speeding up, coming behind me until I get to my vehicle. I get to my vehicle, it stops. That was my first experience as an investigator out in the woods.
You started investigating what year did you say it was?
I started doing the boots on the ground in January 15th of last year.
So going on 2 years now.
Yeah. It'll actually, this coming January will be 1 year on YouTube. Just yesterday was 1 year on, because I have a Facebook chat group, so it's 1 year on that. But before I started filming, I was watching all these guys on YouTube and Facebook and all that. So I was getting the urge to go out because I was learning more of what I saw was what they're seeing and hearing, you know. So it got me wanting to get out there and actually look for these things.
What's the name of your groups, so for the listeners out there interested, they can check it out.
Yeah, it's O.C.S.T, Oklahoma Cryptids Search Team. And I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
So as far as your links or anything, I'll include a link to your channel in the show notes for anyone listening.
Okay.
But I think, unless there's anything else you wanted to discuss, I think we touched a lot of bases here. I think we can try and wrap this one up.
No, we've discussed quite a bit. I mean, there's always more to discuss. You know, I welcome people to get in touch with you and get in touch with me and get more people on the air and just get it all out in the open. Get people involved. Get your friends, your neighbors, your family. Get them interested in it. Get out there and do boots on the ground. Have fun while you're doing it, but be safe.
Yeah, I was hesitant to ever talk about what happened with me just because of what I do for a living and then the ridicule and the stigma that comes with it. But after I've come out with it and everything else, it's not worth caring about. I mean, at the end of the day, if you experience something, there's no reason to hold it in. If people are going to think you're crazy, they're going to think you're crazy for something one way or the other. And at the end of the day, what people think ultimately doesn't really matter. Like, as long as you feel better about it, then you've come to terms with it. That's all you really need.
That's all that really matters is if you and your family feel safe to talk about it, then go ahead and do it. If you feel hesitant, you don't have to give your name. You can say things about this anonymously. This just talk about it. Talk about it to somebody that gets out there and looks for these things, because any little bit of information helps when we're out there looking for these things. Any little bit of information from anybody that knows anything is helpful.
I agree with that. Well, Harold, it has been my pleasure to have you on tonight. I completely thank you for coming out here and sharing your experiences with me and the listeners.
I have had a blast talking to you, and I look forward to listening to more of your podcasts.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If you have any more experiences or anything like that, make sure to hit me up and we can discuss it on another episode.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Anytime. I mean, I'm always planning on going out and getting more experiences under my belt.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we're going to roll out of here. So again, thank you very much and good night, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.